The Alien Academy was famous across many worlds. Every young cadet dreamed of passing its final survival exam. Only the strongest, the bravest, and the most clever could survive. Those who passed became soldiers, explorers, and leaders of their people. Those who failed were forgotten. This year the exam was different. The Academy chose a deadly forest on a strange planet. The forest was alive with danger. Giant trees with twisted roots, poisonous fog rolling low on the ground, and creatures that moved in silence. The place was not just dangerous. It felt hungry. 50 alien cadets stood at the edge of the forest. Their armor shone under the twin suns. They carried scanners, plasma knives, and small glowing shields. Their faces were full of fear, even if they tried to hide it. Each one knew, inside this forest, 7 hours would feel like 7 lifetimes. Among them stood someone different. A human. He was not tall, not shining with alien gear, and not surrounded by the pride of his race. He was just one human student accepted as an exchange cadet. While the others had advanced technology, he carried only a small bag with rope, a metal knife, and some simple tools. He wore no armor, no glowing shield. To many aliens, he looked weak. Some laughed. Some whispered, "He will be the first to die." The overseer, a tall alien general with skin like stone, raised his hand. His voice echoed like thunder. "Cadets! The rules are simple. Survive for 7 hours inside the forest. No ships, no rescue. Only your skill will keep you alive. At the end, those who remain will be honored. Those who fall, the forest will keep them." A horn blew long and deep. The ground shook and the gates to the forest opened. The cadets rushed forward. Some ran in groups, scanning the ground, shouting orders. Others marched carefully, weapons raised. The human walked last. He did not rush. He looked at the trees, at the ground, at the sky. He breathed slowly, like he was listening to the forest. Inside, the air was thick and wet. Shadows moved between branches. Strange cries echoed in the distance, half animal, half machine. The alien cadets activated their scanners. Beeping lights pointed in many directions, showing red signs of danger. Their eyes grew wide. Danger was everywhere. "Stay together," one shouted, but already the forest moved. Roots twisted and rose from the soil, grabbing the legs of a cadet. He screamed as sharp vines wrapped around his arms. Others rushed to help, cutting with glowing knives, but the roots tightened. His scanner sparked and died. He was dragged screaming into the darkness. The forest had taken its first victim. The aliens panicked. Some fired energy blasts into the shadows. The beams lit the trees for a second, but nothing clear was seen. Only more movement, more whispers in the leaves. The cadets trembled. The human stopped walking. He bent down and touched the soil with his hand. It was soft, almost breathing. He looked at the trees. They were tall, with branches that locked together like walls. He saw patterns. Small birds sat on safe branches, while other branches were empty and broken. He noticed how the wind carried the fog, where it was thin and where it was thick. He did not speak. He simply understood. This forest could not be fought. It had to be studied. The aliens ran deeper, trying to escape the roots. Their scanners kept beeping, warning of danger everywhere. But the warnings were useless. The forest was not a machine. It could not be mapped. The human picked up a broken branch. He tested its weight. Then he looked up at a tree. It was strong, tall, with wide branches high above the fog. He placed his hand on the trunk and smiled faintly. While the others fought the forest, he began to climb. From above, he could see more than the cadets on the ground. He saw the glowing fog moving like rivers. He saw shadows of huge creatures sliding between the roots. He saw how the forest shifted and tricked those who fought it. For a moment, he felt the forest was watching him, testing him, and unlike the aliens, he did not tremble. The human sat on a thick branch. He looked down as another cadet's scream echoed. Then silence. The forest swallowed the sound. 7 hours. That was all, but the human was calm. He tied the broken branch to the trunk with his rope, testing its strength. He had an idea. A simple one that no alien cadet would ever think of. The deadly test had begun. And while the aliens trembled, the human had already taken the first step to survive. The forest closed around the cadets like a giant mouth swallowing its food. The tall trees leaned inward, their branches blocking most of the light. The air grew darker, colder, and thicker. Every sound echoed too long, as if the forest repeated the noise to confuse them. The alien cadets marched forward in tight groups. Their glowing shields hummed. Their scanners beeped fast. flashing red lights in every direction. To them, danger was everywhere. The forest was alive, moving even when no wind blew. "Something is behind us," one cadet shouted. They spun around, weapons raised, but nothing was there. Only vines that looked like snakes in the dim light. The cadet shivered. The human walked slower than them. He did not panic. His eyes studied the ground, the bark, and the strange fog rolling at their feet. The fog was thick and greenish, smelling of acid. It moved like it was alive, curling toward the cadets' legs. Their shields flared as the fog touched them, draining power from the glowing energy. "Shields down to 70%, one cadet warned, his voice shaking, but the human had no shield. He simply stepped around the fog. He had seen how it flowed like a river, and he followed the path where it was thin. His boots touched safe earth. His breathing stayed calm. Suddenly a sharp cry cut the air. One cadet fell, tangled in hanging vines. They wrapped tight around his throat, squeezing. He clawed at them with glowing claws, but the vines only grew tighter. His squad rushed to help, cutting with plasma knives. Sparks flew, smoke rose, but the vines refused to let go. The human stopped and watched. He noticed something. The vines tightened when they felt the energy weapons. The more the cadets fought with force, the stronger the vines became. "Don't fight it," the human whispered, but the cadets did not hear. They slashed, burned, and shouted until the vines snapped the cadet's neck with a loud crack. The body dropped to the ground, lifeless. The forest became quiet again. The others trembled. They had lost another comrade. Fear spread through the group like poison. "Stay close," their leader ordered, but his voice had no strength. The human kept walking, slower than before. He was not careless. He was listening. Every sound told him something. A whistle of wind meant an opening. A low growl meant something big was nearby. A drip of water meant the air was safe to breathe. He noticed birds. Small glowing birds hopping from branch to branch. They never landed on broken or rotting wood. They always stayed on strong, living branches. The human nodded. Nature showed him where safety was. He stopped under a tall tree. The trunk was thick, the branches wide. Above the fog, away from the crawling roots. He touched the bark, rough but strong. Perfect. While the aliens fired at shadows, the human pulled out his knife. He began cutting small branches, tying them with rope. His hands moved with quiet confidence. He was not just climbing this tree. He was building. The cadets noticed him and laughed bitterly. "Is he making toys?" one sneered. "He is wasting time," another said, shaking with fear. But their laughter was weak. They were trembling, and deep down they wished they could stop and do something simple too. Instead, they marched forward, guided only by failing scanners. The forest seemed to enjoy their fear. Shadows moved faster. Strange glowing eyes appeared between roots. A low growl rumbled from the mist, then it came. The first real attack. From the fog rose a creature. It was tall, with skin like black stone and claws that dripped poison. Its mouth opened sideways, filled with sharp teeth that glowed faintly blue. The cadets screamed and fired energy blasts. Bright light filled the forest, burning holes into trees. The creature roared but did not fall. Instead, it grew louder. From behind, more creatures stepped out of the fog. Their eyes glowed. Their claws scraped the ground. The cadets fired wildly, shields glowing bright but draining faster and faster. The air filled with heat, smoke, and terror. The human, high in his tree, watched. He had built a small platform, tied strong with vines. He sat on it calm above the chaos. He struck a spark with his knife against a stone. A small fire burned, smoke rising. The creatures below growled at the cadets. But when the smoke drifted near them, they backed away, hissing. Fire, they feared fire. The human leaned back on his branch. He did not smile, but his eyes were steady. Down below, alien cadets cried in panic, their glowing shields breaking one by one. But up above, one human sat safe in a half-built treehouse, the only calm figure in a forest of fear. The forest tested them all, but only one cadet understood that fear itself was the deadliest enemy. Alien struggles, the forest was not quiet anymore. It growled, hissed, and whispered from every side. The cries of cadets echoed between the giant trees, mixing with the roars of unseen creatures. Fear spread like wildfire. Alien cadets ran in small groups, their glowing shields shaking and their scanners beeping nonstop. The screen showed red lights everywhere. Danger ahead, danger behind, danger above. They were trapped in a forest that had no safe path. One cadet shouted, "Scanners are broken." "They're lying to us!" Another yelled back, "Then how do we survive?" No one had an answer. The ground moved under their feet. Thick roots twisted like snakes trying to grab their legs. Vines dropped from the trees, wrapping around weapons and pulling them away. When the cadets cut one vine, two more slithered back down. It was as if the forest hated their technology. A cadet fired his plasma blaster at the roots. The bright beam cut them in half. But the smell of burnt wood filled the air, and then the forest shook in anger. Dozens of roots shot upward, wrapping around the cadet's arms and dragging him screaming into the soil. The ground closed over him, swallowing his body whole. The other cadets froze, horrified. One of them whispered, "The forest eats us." Their fear grew heavier than their armor. But while they panicked, the human sat above them in his half-built treehouse. He tied vines together, making a stronger floor under him. He worked quietly, almost peacefully, like a craftsman at home. He used broken branches as walls, leaves as cover, and vines as rope. The alien cadets saw him and shook their heads. "He is insane," one said. "He builds while we die," but another cadet stared longer. Deep inside, he wondered, why does the forest not attack him? The answer was simple. The human did not fight the forest. He did not cut it, burn it, or blast it with light. He only used what was already dead. Fallen branches, dry leaves, loose vines. The living trees did not move against him. The forest seemed to watch him with silent interest. Down below, the struggle grew worse. A group of cadets tried to form a circle, shields glowing in unison. For a moment, it looked safe. But then the fog thickened, glowing green under the shield dome. The shields flickered, draining faster until one by one they collapsed. Creatures leapt out of the fog, sharp claws, glowing eyes, snapping jaws. Screams filled the night. The human kept working. His fire burned brighter now, fed with dry wood. The smoke climbed upward, curling around his treehouse. The creatures below hissed and backed away from the smoke. They circled, but they did not climb. The cadets fired again and again. Bright lights cut across the forest, blinding their own eyes. Their weapons grew hot, their arms heavy. For every beast they burned, two more appeared. Their leader shouted, "Hold the line!" But his voice cracked. His shield broke and a claw slashed across his chest. He fell with a cry and the group scattered. The forest swallowed their cries like it swallowed everything. Above it all, the human sat, watching. He did not enjoy their pain, but he studied it. He learned. He saw that fear made them weak. He saw that noise drew more creatures. He saw that fighting only made the forest angrier. The human leaned back against the trunk. His heart beat fast, but his mind was clear. He whispered to himself, "Survive by silence. Survive by balance." One injured cadet crawled under his tree, bleeding, shaking. His eyes widened as he looked up at the small fire, the strong vines, and the human sitting calmly above. "Help me," the alien whispered. The human threw down a rope. The cadet grabbed it with trembling hands and pulled himself up. For the first time, an alien cadet entered the treehouse. He collapsed on the wooden floor, breathing hard, eyes wide with fear. The human handed him a dry leaf to press against the wound. Simple, but it worked. The cadet whispered, "How are you not afraid?" The human looked out at the forest, glowing with strange eyes in the dark. He answered quietly, "Fear feeds the forest. Calm keeps it blind." The alien stared at him, not understanding. His kind had always trusted machines, shields, and scanners. But now in this forest, none of that mattered. Only the human with his simple tools was safe. The forest roared again, louder this time. The ground shook. More creatures stirred in the fog. The surviving cadets screamed and scattered into the shadows. But inside the treehouse, one human and one alien sat in silence, hidden above the chaos. The fire crackled softly, a small light in endless darkness. The alien cadets were losing their battle, but the human was winning his. Night fell quickly inside the deadly forest. The tall trees blocked the moons, and the fog thickened until even the cadets' glowing armor looked dim. Shadows grew long and strange. Every rustle in the leaves sounded like footsteps. Every distant cry felt like a warning. The cadets gathered in small groups, shields glowing faint blue. Their faces were pale, their voices shaking. They had survived the first hours, but the night was worse. The forest seemed hungrier now. "Stay close," their leader whispered, though his voice carried no strength. "Do not let the fog touch your skin." But the fog was everywhere. It rolled low to the ground, climbing up roots and wrapping around legs. The cadets' shields hissed each time the mist touched, draining more energy from their packs. The hum of shields grew weaker with every minute. The human sat higher in his treehouse. His fire crackled softly, its glow pushing back the dark. Smoke drifted upward, hiding his shape from anything watching below. He sat calmly, sharpening a branch into a spear, while the injured alien cadet lay nearby, pressing leaves to his wound. The alien cadet whispered, "They are all dying down there." The human did not look down. He only replied, "Because they fight." Suddenly the ground shook. A roar exploded through the forest, so loud it rattled the branches. The cadets froze in terror. Then glowing eyes appeared in the fog. 1 pair, then 3. Then 10 creatures stepped out, tall and twisted, with claws that dripped green venom. Their skin was black stone, cracked with glowing blue veins. Their mouths opened sideways, filled with rows of sharp teeth that glowed like fireflies. The cadets screamed. Energy weapons blazed bright, beams slicing through the fog. For a moment the night lit up like day. A creature shrieked as its shoulder burned, but it did not fall. More creatures rushed forward, their claws slashing against shields. Sparks flew. Cadets shouted, "Hold formation!" The leader cried. The cadets pressed their shields together. The creatures slammed into them, pushing with terrifying strength. The shields flickered, glowing dimmer. Claws tore through and screams filled the air. From above, the human watched carefully. His eyes followed the way the creatures moved. They were not afraid of weapons, not afraid of light. But then the smoke from his fire drifted downward, curling through the fog. The nearest creatures hissed and stepped back. Their glowing eyes narrowed. The human's lips tightened. He had found the answer. Fire. He threw a burning branch to the ground. It landed with sparks, flames spreading over dry leaves. The creatures hissed louder, circling away from the flames. Their claws dug into the soil, but they would not cross the fire. The injured alien cadet in the treehouse gasped. They fear it." The human nodded. "Yes, fire is older than any weapon." Down below, the cadets fired desperately, but their weapons drained faster with every shot. Shields cracked and vanished. One cadet fell to the ground, screaming as claws tore across his back. Another was pulled into the fog, his cry cut off suddenly. The human threw another branch lit from his fire. It landed between a cadet and a charging creature. Flames leapt up and the monster stopped, hissing before slinking back into the dark. The cadet looked up, stunned. He saw the human's glowing fire above, burning steady in the treehouse. For a second, he realized the weakest-looking cadet was the only one with true protection. The battle grew worse. Creatures leapt onto shields, snapping with glowing teeth. Cadets fired wildly, their beams slicing trees, burning roots. But the more they burned the living forest, the angrier it became. Roots whipped from the ground, vines lashed from the sky, trapping more cadets. "Retreat," one shouted, but there was no safe place. The forest itself was the enemy. Above, the human's fire glowed brighter. He fed it with broken branches, keeping the smoke thick. The creatures circled below, their glowing eyes watching him. They roared, but they did not climb. The fire was a wall they would not cross. The alien cadet in the treehouse trembled. Why didn't we think of this? We had all the tech, all the weapons, and yet this simple fire is stronger. The human said nothing. He only kept working, sharpening more branches, tying more vines, preparing his small fortress in the trees. Below, the surviving cadets scattered into the fog, their glowing shields dying one by one. The forest swallowed their cries. Only a few lights remained, flickering weakly in the distance. The night grew colder. The forest grew darker. But one small fire high above the ground burned like a star. The human sat beside it, calm. He had found the secret. The first attack had come. And only one cadet, the human, had faced it without trembling. The forest was silent again. Silent but not peaceful. The silence was heavy, waiting like a predator before the next strike. The glowing eyes of the creatures had faded back into the fog, but every cadet knew they were still there, watching, circling, hunting. Many alien cadets were gone. Those who survived crawled through the shadows, weak and trembling. Their glowing shields flickered faintly, almost empty. Their weapons were nearly drained. The once proud soldiers of the academy now looked like frightened children lost in the dark. But high above the ground, the human was different. His small fire burned steady, its smoke drifting like a protective veil. Around it he worked with calm focus. His treehouse was growing. Branch by branch, vine by vine, it became more than a platform. It became a fortress. He built walls of strong branches woven with vines. He layered leaves thick enough to hide the fire's glow from far away. He tied ropes into a ladder that he could pull up when danger came. Every movement was careful. Every choice was simple. The injured alien cadet who had climbed up earlier lay in the corner watching with wide eyes. His chest wound was wrapped with leaves pressed tightly by vines. It was crude medicine, but it stopped the bleeding. "You build this like you have done it before," the cadet whispered. The human nodded but did not stop working. "Tree houses save children on my world. If they can protect children, they can protect me." The alien frowned. "But this forest is worse than anything. No tech, no weapon works. How can simple wood be enough?" The human paused, looked out into the fog, and answered, "Because the forest does not hate wood, it only hates power." The cadet shivered at the words. He had never thought like that. His people always believed strength came from machines, energy, and force. But here, those things were useless. Here, only the human seemed to understand the truth. Below, the other cadets stumbled blindly. They fired at shadows, hitting nothing. Each blast of energy only drew more roots and more vines. Some screamed, some begged, some cursed. Their fear was loud, and the forest fed on it. One cadet, separated from the rest, ran beneath the human's tree. He was covered in scratches, his shield broken. He tripped over a root and fell hard, crying out. From the fog, a creature's glowing eyes appeared, moving closer. The cadet screamed, "Help me!" The human did not hesitate. He lowered his rope ladder quickly. "Climb," he called. The cadet grabbed the rope, pulling himself up as the creature charged. The firelight from the treehouse reached the ground just in time. The creature hissed, stopping short, backing away from the glow. The cadet pulled himself higher and collapsed onto the wooden floor beside the other alien. He lay there, gasping, looking at the human in disbelief. You saved me." The human said nothing. He simply pulled the ladder up again, tying it safe. The two aliens now sat in the small treehouse, staring at their rescuer. They whispered to each other, "He has no shield, no scanner, nothing. Yet the creatures do not climb. Why does the forest let him live?" The human heard them but kept working. He tied more vines, tightened the walls, and sharpened more branches into spears. His hands moved with quiet determination. His eyes never left the dark forest around them. From afar, a few more cadets saw the glow of the fire. At first they thought it was another trap. But then they saw the human sitting calmly above, while creatures circled below but did not attack. "How is that possible?" one cadet whispered in awe. Jealousy burned in another. "He cheats somehow. He hides while we fight." But deep down, they knew it was not cheating. It was wisdom. The forest groaned suddenly, the sound of roots shifting deep underground. A low hum spread through the air, making the trees tremble. The cadets on the ground panicked, shouting to each other, running again into the fog. But the human's treehouse stood firm. Its branches creaked, but the vines held. The firelight flickered, but the smoke stayed steady. Inside, the human sat cross-legged, sharpening his knife, his eyes calm. The alien cadet he had saved whispered, almost with respect, "You are not like us. You do not tremble." The human glanced at him, then back at the forest. "Trembling wastes time. Time builds nothing. Fear builds nothing. But hands—" He lifted his knife, his rope, his fire. "Hands build survival." The alien lowered his eyes, ashamed. He had spent his strength fighting. The human had spent his strength building, and now only one of them had a safe place to sit. Far in the dark, another scream rose, then silence. The forest swallowed more lives, but in the treehouse the fire burned, the walls stood, and the human remained steady. The treehouse was more than wood and rope now. It was a symbol that survival did not belong to the strongest, but to the one who understood. The deadly forest was not silent anymore. It breathed, it pulsed, it growled. Every tree seemed alive, every shadow waiting. The cadets who still wandered on the ground moved like broken souls, their glowing shields dim, their weapons almost empty. Their faces carried terror, their eyes darting at every sound. But in the treehouse, things were different. The fire burned steady, smoke rising like a wall against the fog. The vines tied tight, the branches locked firm, and the air felt safer above the ground. The human sat cross-legged, sharpening another branch into a spear. Two alien cadets, both rescued, lay nearby. Their wounds were wrapped in leaves. Their breathing was heavy, but they were alive. One of them finally broke the silence. "Why are you not afraid?" His voice was weak, almost accusing. The human did not look up. He turned the branch in his hand, carved it smooth, tied a vine around it, and answered in a calm tone. Because fear is a trap. The forest does not kill first. It waits until you tremble. When you panic, you fight the wrong way. That is when it strikes. The alien cadet frowned, his mind struggling. But fear is natural. Fear warns us. The human finally lifted his eyes, staring into the mist below. Fear warns, yes, but too much fear blinds. You do not see what is simple. The second cadet, still holding his wounded side, leaned forward. Simple? What do you mean, simple? We had the best weapons, the best scanners, the best shields. And none of it works here. His voice cracked with anger and shame. The human leaned back, placing the finished spear beside him. That is the problem. You trusted machines, but the forest is not a machine. It does not fear energy. It does not fear noise. It only notices balance. The two cadets fell silent. His words cut deeper than any wound. Down below, another group of cadets stumbled into view. Their shields flickered like dying lights, their weapons sparking with low energy. They looked up and saw the faint glow of the fire in the treehouse. For a moment, their eyes filled with hope. Up there, one shouted. But as they ran toward the tree, roots burst from the soil, wrapping around their legs. They screamed and fired wildly, cutting roots but burning the living trees. The forest roared in anger, vines crashing down like whips. One cadet was dragged screaming into the mist. The others fled blindly. From above, the human did not move. He only whispered louder fear, faster death. The two rescued aliens shivered. They had never thought of fear as food, but now they saw it clearly. The forest seemed to feed on the panic, growing stronger with every scream. The human broke a few dry branches and fed them to the fire. The smoke grew thicker. The creatures in the distance hissed and backed farther away. He spoke again, not to anyone in particular, but to the night itself. Fire is balance. It gives light, but also danger. You respect it and it protects you. You misuse it and it burns you. The forest understands this. That is why it does not attack me, the first cadet whispered half to himself. So, survival is not about strength. It is about respect, the human nodded once. Respect, patience, and silence. These are stronger than your weapons here. The cadets stared at him, their hearts heavy. They realized the truth. Their people had always trained them to conquer, to fight, to dominate. But here that training was worthless. A single human with simple rope and fire had done more than all of them with their glowing shields. A distant roar shook the ground again. The forest moved like waves, roots shifting, fog swirling. The remaining cadets screamed as more creatures came. Their lights blinked, then vanished one by one into the mist. The two in the treehouse covered their ears, trembling at the sound of their comrades' cries. But the human's eyes stayed clear. They chose fear, he said softly. Fear kills faster than claws. For the first time, the aliens did not argue. They sat quietly, staring into the fire. Their trembling slowed. Their breathing steadied. For the first time, they began to feel what the human felt. Calm. The forest outside roared. But the treehouse stood firm. Smoke curled upward. Firelight flickered, and 3 survivors sat above the chaos. 2 were aliens who had lost faith in their own ways. 1 was a human who had never trusted fear in the first place. The exam was not over. Hours remained. But already the aliens knew one thing. If they wanted to survive, they had to learn from the human. Fear was death. Wisdom was life. The forest had tested them for 6 long hours. It had taken many cadets, dragged into roots, swallowed by vines, torn apart by creatures that glowed in the fog. Their screams still echoed faintly in the trees, but fewer and fewer voices remained. What had begun with 50 cadets was now only a handful, scattered and broken. The sky above remained hidden by thick branches. The moons gave no light. The only glow was from fading shields, weak weapons, and one steady fire burning high in a treehouse. Inside that treehouse, 3 survivors sat close to the flames, 1 human and 2 alien cadets. Their armor was cracked, their bodies bruised, but here in the smoke and firelight they were safe. The human's eyes stayed sharp. He had not slept, not lowered his guard, not once given in to trembling. He cut more branches, tied more vines, and fed the fire with careful hands. Every action was slow, steady, and deliberate. One alien cadet whispered, "How long has it been?" The human answered without looking up. 6 hours. 1 more to survive. The alien swallowed hard. 1 more. But it feels like forever. The human nodded. That is the forest's trick. It bends time with fear. A minute feels like a lifetime when you are afraid. But fear cannot touch me. The aliens lowered their heads. They had seen the truth. Fear had killed more than the claws and fangs of the forest. Below, the fog stirred again. Dozens of glowing eyes appeared, closer this time. The creatures had gathered, circling the treehouse. Their hissing grew louder, their claws scraping the soil like knives against stone. The two aliens panicked. "They are coming for us. They will climb this time." But the human only stirred the fire, feeding it more wood. The flames leapt higher, the smoke thicker. He spoke calmly, almost like a teacher. "They will not climb. They fear what burns. They fear balance. We do not fight them. We let the fire speak." The creatures circled below, their glowing eyes watching, their roars shaking the branches. But still none dared step into the smoke. They scratched at the soil, hissed at the flames, but they would not climb. The aliens looked at him in disbelief. You were right. Fire is older than fear." The human said nothing. His silence was stronger than any speech. Minutes passed. Long, heavy minutes. The forest shook, but the treehouse stood. The cadets below screamed, scattered, and fell silent. The fog swallowed them one by one. At last the sky cracked with sound, a horn, deep and powerful. The exam's final signal. The human lifted his eyes. He knew what it meant. The 7 hours were complete. The test was over. The creatures below froze. Slowly, as if controlled by some hidden command, they turned back into the fog. Their glowing eyes faded. The roots stilled. The vines uncoiled. The forest grew silent again. Silent, but now without hunger. The two aliens in the treehouse collapsed to their knees, tears running down their faces. They had survived. They had truly survived. Above the forest, ships of the Academy descended, bright lights cutting through the darkness. Alien generals in heavy armor stepped out, their faces stern. They scanned the forest floor, counting the survivors. Only a few cadets stumbled into the clearing, shaking, their armor torn. Then they looked up. Their eyes widened. There, above the deadly forest, stood a simple treehouse built of broken branches and vines. Smoke rose calmly from its fire. And inside, one human stood tall, unbroken, unafraid. The general's voice echoed, "Report!" The few surviving cadets on the ground stammered. "The forest. It destroyed our weapons. It killed our shields. Nothing worked. Nothing but—" Their voices trailed as they looked up at the treehouse. The human climbed down slowly, rope in hand, calm as always. His feet touched the soil without trembling. He stood before the generals, his clothes torn, his face dirty but his eyes steady. One alien general studied him carefully. "How did you survive when the others failed?" The human answered simply, "I listened. I respected the forest. I built with it, not against it. That is all." Silence followed. The generals exchanged glances. The remaining cadets bowed their heads, ashamed. The general's voice finally broke the silence. "The exam is complete. Of 50 cadets, only a handful stand, but one stands above all." "The human," gasps spread among the crowd. A human, outlasting the finest cadets of the galaxy? It was unthinkable. Yet the proof stood before them. The human lifted his eyes to the forest one last time. The trees stood silent, the fog calm, as if the forest itself respected him. The exam had ended. The test was survived, and all it took was a treehouse, a fire, and a mind that did not tremble.